What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's review we're going to be taking a look at the brand new Transformers Studio Series Deluxe class Autobot Topspin. Starting off here firstly with the packaging, you can see that we have a fantastic CGI render of Topspin from the DOTM movie, Transformers Dark of the Moon, the figure clearly displayed here in his robot mode. The side of the packaging has a really fantastic close-up of Topspin's face, probably the best look we have ever gotten for this character. And then as we turn around to the back of the packaging, we've got product shots of both him in robot mode as well as in his awesome looking weaponized NASCAR vehicle mode. We do also have a very brief bio. Topspin and the Wreckers turn the Decepticons into scrap. And then the other side of the packaging has another piece of fantastic artwork. So without further ado, let's crack Topspin open and see what awaits us inside. Taking a very quick look here at the included backdrop, you can see that it is the same that we have gotten with many of the other Transformers Dark of the Moon figures, that being the Chicago Bridge where the final battle does take place. I would have much rather had them given Topspin a completely different backdrop, perhaps when we are first introduced to the Wreckers when they're about to load up the Xanthium where the NASA space shuttle is. I think that would have greatly complemented this character, but nonetheless this is the backdrop that we get, and it is still very detailed and has some fantastic artwork. And here we have Topspin fully transformed up into his astounding looking weaponized NASCAR mode, and I've got to say that this figure looks absolutely remarkable. The sculpted detailing, the paint applications, and just the overall detailing in general, I think makes this look as if though it is potentially one of the best Studio Series figures that we have gotten throughout this entire year. I honestly do think that this is one of the best deluxes Hasbro and Takara Tomy have produced for the Studio Series yet. So without further ado, let's take a look at some of the closer details. So bringing Topspin in for a closer look, you can see all of the amazing sculpting and detailing all throughout the vehicle mode. These had very distinctive looks in the Dark of the Moon movie, as they were completely modified NASCARs and had all of these astounding looking weapons. You can see just how heavily armoured up Topspin is here. I absolutely love the front section of the vehicle mode. You can see that we've got some amazing paint applications of this gunmetal silver which picks out all of this mechanical detailing. At the front, the headlights have been painted. We've got the Impala logo, the yellow stripe that goes along the front. Just check out that glorious looking detail there at the front. You can see from the side of the vehicle, similarly to the front of the vehicle mode, we've got some astounding looking detailing. All of that looks absolutely fantastic. We've also got some nice details such as the Ultra Wreckers, which was also something we saw apparent on the Studio Series Deluxe Roadbuster. We've got the 48 as we turn to the top of the vehicle mode. You can see here that they've actually painted 4 there, and you can see an outline of an 8. Now, they didn't have to actually do this as it's very difficult to see, but you can see that they went the extra mile for continuity and did indeed paint that, so that's so nice to see them do that. You can see here we've got all of the ammo belts here, looking absolutely fantastic. As we get to the rear end of the vehicle mode, you can see all of the fantastic sculpted detailing, the silver paint applications, the NASCAR logo. As we turn to the rear end of the vehicle, in my opinion, this is just as detailed as the front. You can see we've got some amazing silver paint applications here where the exhausts would be, and the exhausts that we actually get on the shoulders of Topspin in robot mode are apparent here in vehicle mode. However, I don't think that that looks too out of place whatsoever, considering these are exhausts and this is the back of the figure. I think that overall it works really, really nicely. Just giving you a quick look at how he looks from a bird's eye perspective. You can see they're very weaponized, and then as we turn to the underside, you can see where the claws do store. The claws do actually become part of the side of the vehicle mode. There is a specific way that you do have to peg these in, and I'll go into that more once we have a look at the reverse transformation from robot mode to vehicle mode. But as a whole, I think he compacts really nicely, and the vehicle mode here looks truly remarkable. In terms of weapons, you can see here he has a set of machine guns. These ones are not removable nor detachable, so you can't separate them, and they are made out of a very pliable, flexible material. Unfortunately, that is also apparent here for the removable guns that we will use in robot mode. They are very rubbery. They're even more rubbery than what we got with the Studio Series Shockwave blade. I really wasn't expecting them to be this flexible. Initially, I did think that they were just grey pieces of plastic. However, to my surprise, when opening this figure out of the packaging, I can confirm that they are indeed rubber, and there is no paint apps applied to them whatsoever. But you can see the level of sculpting and detailing they've managed to achieve here. In all, I just think that it's an amazing looking vehicle mode. For a Dark of the Moon Wrecker comparison, here we have the Studio Series Topspin compared next to the original release of the Dark of the Moon Leadfoot, as well as the newly released Studio Series Roadbuster, and I think that these as a set look absolutely phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to the upcoming Studio Series Leadfoot so that we can have a complete trio of Studio Series Wreckers, but here for now, this to me works perfectly. I won't go into too many comparisons here with Leadfoot as they're not supposed to scale with one another. However, just showing you the comparisons here between both Topspin and Roadbuster, I thought Roadbuster was a phenomenal figure, but here I can happily say that Topspin is by far my favourite out of the two. You can just see how awesome he looks, how well painted he is when compared here next to Roadbuster. I really do think he's a fantastic figure, and then just comparing them in terms of their height, you can see that they're basically exactly the same in terms of their length, although by the looks of things, Topspin is slightly larger of a vehicle mode in terms of the whip, but just absolutely phenomenal looking figures. And for a Dark of the Moon Deluxe class Topspin comparison, here we have the new Studio Series version compared next to the original 2011 version. And in my own personal opinion, I think that the new version destroys the previous 2011 version, which I already thought was an amazing figure. And when it was announced that we were indeed getting a Studio Series Topspin, I thought that there was no way Hasbro and Takara Tomy could top what they did here with the original release. But you can just see how much more detail they've managed to pack into this release. This one, upon comparison, looks very plasticky, very bland and very washed out, whereas this brand new one is more metallic, more vibrant, has a lot more paint applications applied to him, and the weapons, the sculpt work is just so much more sharper. If we bring them in for a closer look, you can see for the front bumper section, there is no denying whatsoever that the new version is vastly superior. I think that the weapons on the new version are better, whilst I do prefer the harder plastic that we got on the original version. I think the sculpt work on these more rubbery weapons looks a lot more faithful to what we saw in the film. And then if I just give you a side comparison, you can just see how much more detailed the Studio Series version is, and then you can compare them from the top. There is literally no contest in my opinion. This new version is vastly superior than the previous version. So with everything just about wrapped up here for vehicle mode, let's get Topspin transformed up into his equally amazing looking robot mode. Surprisingly, the transformation is quite straightforward. So to begin with, you're just going to want to remove these blasters. You could essentially leave them on during the transformation. However, for a more cleaner transformation and just to avoid clearance issues, I like to remove them. We're going to turn to the underside and just remove these sections here. They are made out of a very pliable rubbery plastic, similarly to what we got with the guns. So just remove all that. We're going to come here to this section now, and I recommend getting your finger now into this section. You can see in here, and just untabbing that, and of course repeat the same process here for this side. Just untabbing that section. With that now done, we can take this here and extend this out on this ball joint. So repeat the same process, and then here you're going to want to hinge this, and you can see it is on a double hinge joint, and that we do have a slot there that this tab here will clip into. So just snap that in, and then repeat the same process here for the opposite side. So lift this whole section up, just snap that nice and securely into place. Come to this front section now, and what I recommend doing is slightly splitting these, and you can see just lift this up and pull this section forward. Just gently wriggle this out, and then repeat the same process here. So take this and just gently wriggle that section out. With that now done, we can turn to this piece. So you're going to want to get your thumb here where the back of the bumper is. Just lift this up, and then that will allow you to then hinge this all the way back. With that now done, you're going to want to take these sections here and just hinge those outwards, and then repeat the same process, hinge those outwards. Bring the legs down now as we're going to compress this. Shoot this section forward so that it slides into this cavity, and then with that done, you're just going to want to clip all of that nice and securely into place. We can then take this section here, rotate this up, and just compress it. It will lock in slightly, not to the greatest degree, however, I haven't found to have any issues with this when handling the figure in robot mode. Now that that's done, we can turn our attention to this section. So you're going to want to take the foot, take this back piece here, and just angle this backwards. With that now done, you can see this heel spur will fold into this gap, so hinge this all the way out, and that will lock the heel spur outwards. Take this wheel here and just fold this in, and that will clip into place. Repeat the same process here. So just detach all that, fold this section over. Come now to the arms. You're just going to want to untab this section, bring this down, untab this section here, and also bring this down, and these will indeed lock. So you're going to bring that forwards and then bring that section forwards. Take the hands, just fold those out, and repeat the same process. And then with these, you're going to angle these up on these ball joints, and you can see here a tab that will peg into a slot here on the side of the arm. So just angle this all the way up, snap that nice and securely into place, and repeat the same process here for the opposite side, ensuring that everything is nice and securely and aligned. And here we have Studio Series Topspin fully transformed up into his astounding looking robot mode. And so here we have Topspin fully transformed up into his robot mode. Now you saw that whilst the transformation was more on the simplistic side, it is definitely incredibly effective, as in my opinion this is the best representation we have ever gotten for a transformable version of Topspin in the Dark of the Moon movie. You can see that as we turn him around, all of the kibble on the arm is indeed accurate to what we saw in the movie. And then as we turn around to the back, whilst it may look fairly kibbly at first, I can assure you that this was the look that Topspin did obtain in the Dark of the Moon movie, besides perhaps this section here, but nonetheless, I still think that it's an amazing looking release. You can see, just as we turn him all the way around, a lot more proportioned than on the original version in my opinion, and of course bringing him in for a closer look, you can see that the amount of detail that we've got going on there for the head sculpt is truly remarkable, as well as the exceptional paint applications. This figure has been painted really nicely. You can see that we've got a lighter, more metallic blue there for the visor with the silver faceplate, and I think that contrasts really nicely with the darker plastic. We've got some silver highlights there at the top, and we've also got a slight sculpted section here where the Autobot emblem would actually be present on the real CGI model. As we turn to the top, you can see that where I presume Topspin's hair would be, that's all been sculpted really nicely and has been given a super nice metallic blue wash. We've got the smokestacks here that come up on the shoulders. These look really nice, and you can see that they are more of a pliable material, similarly to what we got there with the guns and of course the claws. You can see that we do have some kibble here on the shoulders, however that is accurate to the movie, and I will show you how you can use this to your advantage later on during the review. But the sculpt work there for the arms I think is fantastic. You can see all of the piston and hydraulic detailing, and the torso is amazing. You can see the highlights there of blue, silver, and the mechanical components I just think look tremendous. As we turn down to the lower section, the silver highlights, the legs I think are very nice and proportioned. I love the sculpted detailing. The design looks so complex, however of course you saw the transformation isn't that complex, so it's amazing what they've managed to achieve here, and I absolutely love the subtle change of where the wheels were and the fact that they fold in to create for a more movie accurate appearance, and the toes too have also been detailed really nice. Bringing in some of the accessories and how you can incorporate them into the figure. So of course here we have the claws, and you can see that Topspin does indeed have hands. So we have a few options here. What we can do is we can actually take these and just port those into the real hands of Topspin. However, in my opinion, I think that this looks rather goofy. What we can then do is take them, and they are sculpted in a way to fill out all of this section here on the forearm. So we can just take these here and port those into place, and you can see that they do hang off the arm. Now, something which is slightly unfortunate, as they are a completely different colour to the rest of the arm, they do stick out slightly, and that to me is perhaps a slight nitpick that I do have, is that I wish that they were a similar colour to what we got with the rest of the arm. If you are not happy with having both the claws and the hand, you can of course fold the hand in due to transformation and simply just have the claw. However, in my opinion, that looks slightly odd, as we do have a huge gap here which is left to be filled, but of course you can fold this out. It's completely up to your own interpretation. Bringing in the other one, we can just peg this in here for, of course, a more symmetrical look. And then bringing in Topspin's weapons, these can be held in a variety of different ways. So we can peg those into the figure's hands, and once again that does conceal the look of the hands if you just wish for him to have claws, or we can take them and port them into the claws themselves, which in my opinion is probably how I'm going to display Topspin, as I believe this was the look that we saw in the movie. So we can just take these here and port those in, and in my opinion that looks a lot nicer. Or alternatively, we can take the guns off and then peg them into their original ports that we have them in vehicle mode. Just peg this in here, and the instructions do indeed mention a weaponized mode where you can utilize the kibble as Topspin's firepower. And just to demonstrate that, the instructions are rather vague on how you should do this. You can see here that they do just mention pulling the backpack down and then pulling the arms down and then hinging that out. However, I find that all to be rather unnecessary, as you can simply just untab this section here, bring this down, rotate these sections around. So I'm really unsure as to why they ask you to remove and hinge down the backpack, but you can see that is how you can utilize the kibble for Topspin, and this was a look that we did see Topspin obtain in the Dark of the Moon movie, especially when he is taking down Devcon towards the final battle of DOTM. He did have shoulder cannons, and all of this kibble here did look very similar to this. So in my opinion, I think this looks absolutely fantastic. Turning very quickly to articulation, the head is on a ball joint, so it can look left to right as well as up and down ever so slightly. The arms are on ball joints, so they can rotate the full 360. All of the joints are incredibly tight on this release. They can also hinge up and down, and due to these sections being made of a slightly rubbery plastic, it doesn't obstruct the motion whatsoever. We do indeed get a full 360 degree range of motion here at the bicep, as well as a double joint here for the elbow due to transformation. We don't unfortunately get any form of wrist rotation, however you saw due to transformation that they can hinge back and forth. No waist articulation unfortunately due to the way the figure transforms, however the legs can hinge out that far, and back that far. So not the greatest range of motion, however, a range of motion that I think you'll be able to accomplish many poses out of. We can of course do the splits. We get a full 360 rotation here at the thigh, as well as a 90-degree bend there for the knee. And unfortunately there is no form of ankle rocker joint here for the feet, so they are static unless you utilize the hinge joint there for transformation, but I don't think that will give you the greatest range of motion. So in terms of articulation, whilst it may not be the greatest, I still think that it is more than acceptable, especially for a wrecker. Of course, you're probably going to have this figure propped up against some of the other Decepticons, pulling off their heads, pulling off their limbs, or in a pose which utilizes the huge shoulders. And just to demonstrate the range of motion that we have on these, you saw they're on ball joints, so they can rotate forwards and backwards, hinge, up and down to your so desire. So there really is quite a lot of variety in the way you can display this figure. For a quick Studio Series size comparison, here we have Studio Series Topspin compared next to Studio Series Roadbuster, and you can see that Topspin is actually slightly taller than Roadbuster, as he was in the movie, so that's great to see that Hasbro are indeed keeping him with scale, especially here in robot mode, and you saw that in vehicle mode they are also to scale. In terms of how they look from a side perspective, you can see that Topspin just has more kibble on his arms due to the way he's designed, and in my opinion, I think his backpack compresses a lot better than what we got here with Roadbuster, and when comparing them, Topspin is definitely the more substantial in terms of weight, so there is a lot more plastic here used for Topspin, and in my opinion, out of the two, I much prefer Topspin to Roadbuster, who I already thought was a really nice figure. And here for a Topspin size comparison, here we have the new Studio Series version compared next to the 2011 version. Now in my opinion, I do think that this is going to be rather divisive in terms of people's own preference. I think that many people are still going to really like the original version, which, as stated before, I always thought was a really nice looking figure, but in my own personal opinion, I do think that the Studio Series version is better proportioned and is a lot more accurate and has more detailing than the previous version. I like how the kibble is actually situated on the shoulders rather than as a separate piece here on the backpack. You can see that this whole section here was on its own independent hinge, whereas this one is more accurate to the film, being that it's sat on the shoulders. I think that the look of the head sculpts is vastly superior on the Studio Series release than compared to the older release, and just in terms of detailing, I think the Studio Series 1 wins hands down, especially where the torso is concerned, the thighs are concerned, just everywhere. The Studio Series 1 could definitely wreck the original DOTM one. Now, turning to reverse transformation, it's just as straightforward as it was going from vehicle mode to robot mode, so of course we're going to want to remove these pieces. I will actually leave the guns on for this reverse transformation just to show you that you can indeed leave them on if you don't want to have more pieces laying around. You're going to want to collapse the fists in on either sides and then turn around here to the back, and you can see a slot that this tab here will fill, so just hinge all of this back and it will snap nice and securely into place. Repeat the same process, so just align that up and tab that in all nice and securely. Turn around here to the front, and with this you're going to want to take the wheel, hinge that back, take the foot here, hinge that down, and all of this will collapse accordingly. Repeat the same process here, so just fold this piece back, and just to show you what went on, fold this down, and then this piece here will fold over the top. I wouldn't recommend tabbing these in just yet, as we still have to attach them to the front windshield, so just hinge these down for now. Take this backpack section, rotate this all the way around, take this piece here and pull this out, and then what you'll do is you'll take this and extend it on this double hinge joint. Now before you do that, what I recommend doing is loosening these tabs, so untabbing these pieces, hinging those down, ensuring that everything stays aligned where the arms are concerned. So just attach this section, hinge that down, and then these here will compress inwards. So you're just going to want to compress all of this nice and securely, and then this section will fold over the top, and then with this piece, this will collapse down. Now inside here, you can see that there is a tab. Just trying to see how well that can show up. Perhaps it's better to show it on this side. You can see that there is a slot there that these two tabs will peg into. So the first one, you're just going to want to snap into place, and then of course repeat the same process here with the opposite side. So just overlap this. It can be rather difficult to do as there isn't much clearance here, and of course you don't want to put too much pressure on the plastic, but just try your best and then snap those two pieces together. With that now done, we can fully extend this whole section down and tab that into place, and then now it's just a matter of hinging all these joints down. You can see the slot there that this tab here will peg into, so just snap that into place, and of course repeat the same process here. So hinge all this down, snapping all of that nice and securely. And there we have Topspin fully transformed back into his NASCAR mode. Now, as stated before, these pieces do indeed actually become part of the side of the vehicle mode. Now, in order to do this, you can see a tab here that will port into this slot. And on the underside of these, there are these grooves on either side that these tabs here will peg into. It doesn't matter what side you peg them on, so just align those up, slide this in. As this is rubbery plastic, it can be quite hard to do, and then with this you're just going to want to align this up and give that a nice firm squeeze, and you can see how it just fills out that slight gap that we had there for the doors. Of course, repeat the same process here for the opposite side, so just tap that into place, and then here, snap that into place. And that is the fully transformed Autobot Topspin back into his astounding looking weaponized NASCAR mode. And so that was my review on the brand new Transformers Studio Series Deluxe Class Topspin. Now, before I get into my final thoughts, something which I failed to mention earlier on in the review is that this figure can indeed roll really nicely on all four wheels, and despite it having some extra components underneath, it doesn't obstruct the overall rolling aspect of this figure whatsoever. With that out of the way, we can now delve into the final thoughts. I absolutely love this figure. If you haven't guessed already from this review, I think that this is an amazing release by Hasbro. The detailing alone, especially in vehicle mode and even in robot mode, is truly phenomenal, almost masterpiece quality. Whilst the transformation may not be the most complex, I think that it is more than effective and results in a very accurate look for the robot mode, and of course a very accurate look here for the NASCAR mode. In my opinion, this figure just hypes me up even more for the final wrecker, that being the upcoming Deluxe Class Leadfoot. In my opinion, out of the wreckers that we have so far from the Studio Series, out of this one and Roadbuster, Topspin here is definitely my personal favourite, and I really hope that I was able to showcase him here in his entirety throughout this review. I really do hope that you enjoyed my review. If you did, please do let me know down in the comment section below. Also, be sure to let me know whether or not you agree with my thoughts and what figure you prefer, this new Studio Series version or the original 2011 Deluxe version. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts down below, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.